They say, we owe you a favor. Now, what's a favor being a finance attorney? The problem is, the week before that, I signed a job to do a $100 million construction job. I actually physically bought the property, was ready to go. You know what they told me? No problem, we'll put it on ice for 2 years. So I had to change the direction I was going for the next 2 years in order to assist. And I said, well, if, you know, it's really against my conscience to do that. But I had been traveling around enough with him, I knew they had the power. And Boker, I told him, I said, well, you're the most powerful man in the world. I'm sure you can do whatever you wanted to. I didn't realize at the time that he really wasn't. He was the front for the most powerful people in the world. I.e. brings you back up to the same situation. This document I get got my curiosity up, like it should yours when you get to your reading. I started calling all these people that were talking, that were listed there. Nobody knew anything about it except for one couple. This one couple said, yes, we were instructed to send you that document. I said, well, tell me more about it. And he said, we can't. We'll set up a meeting for you. I set up a meeting, and at that point, I came into direct communication with Commander Hatonn of the Pleiades sector, who reminded me of my agreement 5 years previously in Switzerland, and asked again if I would again assist in getting, quote, the information out to the world. I'm in direct contact now. I said, well, I got to edit it. I got all this problem. Remember all the translation problems I had? And I said, we got all of these things that are going on. He says, no, you're not allowed to change one word. You can change obvious misspellings and punctuation. We hate the English language. I said, okay. So that was my stipulation, and the next one he says, I want the documents out as quick as you can. And I said, no problem. So within the next 6 weeks, we published 6 journals. He had them all ready to go for us. The first one was Spacegate, which we gave you as you came in. The second one was called AIDS, the Last Great Plague, which goes into how AIDS was created, how it can be cured. Remember, we're all here listening, all things are going to be bad. The aliens, our Pleiadian brothers and sisters, said, guys, we're going to wake you up. But you guys are going to we'll give you the information so you can A, get your constitution back, B, we'll give you the cure for AIDS, we'll do that. You got to do it. We're not going to do it for you. You messed up in your own backyard. We're not going to come over and do it. But we'll give you the information. We will tell you, because you want some historical background, how this occurred. Just what they were talking about. Cy was giving you a background. You're talking about the new Constitution. We have a book back here, it's called Rape of the Constitution. It tells you the new Constitution, the new state's Constitution, how it's all set up. So you can go back and see that historical value. You can find out about the Federal Reserve, who, names, everything else, because they're monitoring the entire planet. Because we're going to flip over on its axis about the year 2000. Now, the Mayans, smart people.
What does that mean? Flip over on the taxes?
Axis. Flip over, upside down. We're going to flip over on its axis. The Mayans calculated the year 2011, so the E.T.s say, we don't know the exact date either, but we know it's ready because we're going to monitor everything that goes down and see how many of you want to board those craft to go to one of those other 175 billion or graduate to higher levels. They claim to be the heavenly hosts sent here from God, because everybody's praying for answers. They say, how do we do this and how do we get out of these things? Now, that's interesting. Okay. Some of the AIDS document, again, the good doctor told you a lot about these things. Again, there are cures for AIDS that are available. They created the virus. The E.T.s tell us it was created. It goes right along with Bo Wrights and the rest of them. They claim it may be in a different place, but it doesn't make any difference. They say that all viruses are crystalline. All viruses can be shattered by frequency medicine. Dr. Royal Rife down in San Diego in the 40s developed a microscope to see the virus alive. John Crane, an assistant of his, worked with him in developing the frequency machines, and he was curing cancer across the United States as other viruses. At that time, his microscope, the right microscope, was taken out of circulation because, for whatever reason, they didn't want that to happen. Now, let's give you some more history that's come up from the Palladians so you can know where we're at. They're telling us that our, quote, great government, who's been going on for centuries, not just a year or two, we're talking about centuries, has a global plan. It's called the Plan 2000. The Plan 2000. Isn't that interesting? We're coming up with another year, 2000. And that is to have the New World Order, which is a socialist dictatorship, in force by the year 2000. They're ahead of schedule. That's described in Cry of the Phoenix, the Plan 2000. It'll tell you the players, how they're doing it. Part of the program, remember what I told you originally? This planet was engineered. They explain how they engineer a planet. It's like us. When we reach a certain population point, what do? We move to America, you move to Australia, anywhere you go until you use up all of the natural things that you can. You ask any engineer today going to any school that's graduating or anything else, he will tell you we've used up the biosphere. It's gone. If that's true, then what else is going on? I mean, I'm already scared to death of what's happening in the political arena. I was in that arena. I chose not to do it. When they asked me to be the president, I said no. Within 2 weeks, all my bankers that I called and I did business with for 20 years called all their loans. I don't know about you, but as a real estate developer, I lived on borrowed money. I didn't want to have it on my own. There's no tax advantage in doing that. It cost me a couple $1 million so fast you couldn't believe it. Because, you know, that's demand. It's like Donald Trump. What they're doing is taking all of his assets. You know, he's smart enough to have some hidden away, and anybody that gets in that arena, you want to make sure you're that way. And that's the same thing that Bo's talking about. I'm going to go deal in whatever I'm doing, arms and drugs, but they're going to dump it in Switzerland or some other offshore place. Well, anyway, the Palladians themselves look just like us. There are all kinds of species. Unfortunately, Hatonn is 9.5 foot tall. That's what he describes himself. Bald-headed and very handsome. I don't know what that means. He also jokes. He says he's part of the basketball team of the cosmos. So they do have a humor. Now, they're going to tell us at this point that we want to know what's going on in the United States and why are they here? Because the United States was a special country. Our Constitution was formed under God. We have the last bastion of freedom in the entire planet. My wife and I travel around the world. There isn't any place better. However, we've eroded and given away most of our rights at this minute. And somebody asked me a little while ago, what about taxes? If you understand, it's voluntary. They've been telling you it's voluntary. Well, if it's voluntary, why do you do it in the first place? And then if you go down and you sign your tax return, it says, I declare under perjury. You ever pledge yourself guilty in advance? That's what the tax return says. You got to read these things. If it's a voluntary system, then you're guilty in advance no matter what they do. Now, a lot of you heard me on the radio and said, I'm going to tell you what's going on economically, so I'm going to give you what the Palladians tell us. They wrote a book called Spiral to the Economic Disaster. Confirmation of that, Dr. John King wrote a book, and it's in the back called Chaos in America, and I'm going to tell you my own experiences so you'll be able to know, A, what you can do in order to survive the coming up New World Order and this new transition of money. Before I get into that, let's talk about some hard things to read the paper. I had my own stock brokerage firm. In order for me to sell money, I had to go through all the malarkey in the securities industry and became a broker-dealer. I became a registered financial principal. That put me in a position of buying and selling all stocks, anything I wanted to do, and created my own underwritings. Interesting, I sold money and I had to be licensed to do it. Funny game. Let's start looking at the realities today and how you fit into it. In the last 6 weeks, 400,000 people have been laid off every week across the United States. Last year, 917,000 families filed bankruptcy in the United States. This year, 65 million Americans didn't file their tax returns. Now we have a country, get this, we have a country with only 225 million. Because I was in the investment business and I was good at what I did, I will tell you some history that I can use both for and against. I will tell you that 1 out of 3 people in the United States right now physically get their check directly from the United States government. 1 out of 3 of us. Now, when they start losing their income, who are they going to go run on? They're going to find somebody over here that has money so they can tell them to make sure that they get their Social Security check. Remember, Social Security is gone for you that are involved into it. It's now a direct obligation to the Treasury. Nothing has been said about money today. I love money and I love to follow its trends. We are going in the hole $1,200,000,000 every day as extra. You know how much $1 billion is? It's 10,000 $100,000 homes. That's going down the tubes. And we're talking about in America where people don't have places to live right now and they're screaming for help. Why are we doing this? Quote, the Federal Reserve. This quasi-police force set up by the Rothschild-Rockefeller situation in accompanying with the Internal Revenue Service, who's a collection agency for them, are basically bankrupting us. We are $3 trillion admitted direct debt at this minute of the United States government. We have another 10 trillion of indirect debt. Indirect debt means where the government has set up guarantees to other countries, other people, or loans in case of default. Private companies at this minute have taken over all the assets. From Resolution Trust Corporation is a private corporation that taken away all the assets from the Federal Savings and Loan Insurance Corporation, which is again a private corporation. Why did they switch it to another corporation? Guess what? The American taxpayer has to pick up that obligation. FDIC is $7 billion admitted upside down. In other words, they're in the hole that much. That's $70,000, $100,000 homes, right? They don't have enough to cover the concurrent things that are going on. I.e. comes in, what can we do about it from an administration standpoint? Well, it looks like we could just repudiate all of our money on the world and start over again. I.e. the rumor is, like scientists told us, 100-to-1 devaluation. Rumors are it could be as early as September. I said sometime after this election and after tax time this year that anything can happen on a daily basis. Now, the Palladians tell us we're past due for a lot of things. A lot of things is going to tell you. That means, as far as their computers are monitoring, they said, we don't know how you can keep this balloon afloating anymore. Because of all of the debt, we have no income. Now look what's going on. As the income starts decreasing from the federal government, less people are working, right? Noticing everybody being laid off? They have to increase the taxes from a smaller work base. Did you notice that the legislator gave themselves a raise?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. We go from another 1% sales tax basically in California because we're $12 billion in the hole in California. $12 billion. Where is this money going to come from? There was mentioned before municipal governments. Municipal governments are always screaming for money. So what they set up a long time ago, because of the tax shelters that were agreed with called municipal industrial bonds, tax shelter, tax-free investments. If you will put your money guaranteed by this municipality into these projects, you will be able to get the interest tax-free. It's interesting to note that most of these projects right now are what they call non-performing. Which means if you got involved with one of these, quote, guaranteed by this private municipality, what's that guarantee worth? What is the United States guarantee worth to you today? Think about what guarantee is. It limits liability. There's only two basic places for you to invest money. First one is a bank, into bonds by the government or companies, or what are we talking about? Savings and loans and insurance companies. The banks are insolvent, the savings and loans are insolvent. The insurance companies are unique because they don't have to market their assets to book value. Did you know that? Let me give you for instance. Most insurance companies take all of their money that's coming in at no cost to them. I don't know if you know about the insurance business, but I was going to buy an insurance company because they're so lucrative. They give you nothing for your money. Absolutely nothing. Until you hold it to maturity. And most contracts mature at age 96 and you don't make it anyway, so what difference does it make? So let's take a look at what they do. If they buy $100,000 quote, of these junk bonds in order for a leveraged buyout. And the guy that's running the insurance company, his assets, he gets paid a nice new Rolls Royce or a Cadillac or whatever he wants to for providing this thing. What you have is insurance companies, look at Executive Life in Los Angeles, for instance, who has provided all of this beautiful money for all these leveraged buyouts, and 99%, 99, have been failures. They haven't been paid off. Insurance companies can mark those assets at face value. The accounting methods, the fiscal accounting methods say we haven't sold it, so therefore there's no loss. If there's no loss, what's it worth? What's a junk? If you can't sell it, what's it worth? Nothing. Now I'm going to give you some more fun. 80% of the real estate owned by Mutual Benefit Life is what they call non-performing loans. Aetna, 58%. Their real estate, that means there's no income coming off of it. Now we know Resolution Trust has got $1 trillion worth of real estate. They lie to you when they tell you they got 600 million, and then they add for another 100 and some billion just to cover the interest on it. But what they're talking about is, remember this interest goes right back to the quote, the cartel. So we have to look at this situation a little careful. If I've got rid of the insurance companies, they're no good. You guys want to hear some real fun things? Everybody that goes buy a lottery ticket, you all have done that. If you win, you get an annuity from an insurance company. Isn't that neat? Well, you didn't know that. I'm sorry. Should have said that. Now let me tell you some other fun things. On the leveraged buyouts, the guys that are sitting where I used to sit, looking at the investments and say, now how can I, quote, take the accepted rules and rate a company? Simple. I got an insurance company with pension fund money in it, right? Pension fund says, here, Joe Blow, you're 40 years old, and 20 years from now, you're going to retire at X number of dollars. I'll tell you what, I got an insurance company over here, based on these high rates they're getting from the junk bonds, will sell me an annuity at a real discounted rate. Are you guys getting some pictures? That happened. So the pension funds have been rated, and now in California, what are they telling you now? They want to take, quote, the surplus to pay the tax reductions in California. They're going to be just like Social Security, and there's a direct obligation to the taxpayer. There's nobody here to pay it. Wake up. Now, let's go some history. I just got through telling you there's only two places to put your money. Remember the banks, bonds, savings, and insurance companies, where do they put their money to make money? Two places, real estate and American industry. Real estate. I'm heavy in that. I will tell you I have a house for sale in Montana for $3,000. I took $1,200 offer. The guy didn't even come up with the $1,200 bucks. I have a house in Denver that is on the 18th hole of a golf course. It's not a little place, 4,000 feet. And a couple years ago it was appraised at about 300 and something. And I can't get an offer at 140. I have another friend of mine who stoned the Denver Gold, by the way. And he has a house for $1.5 million. He says, if somebody give me $300,000 for it, I'll be happy. Okay? San Diego, the developers this year were sued by the people that bought the property last December for $120,000. The developers are selling them for $99,000. 20% reduction, which means where is that illusion of real estate? Now let me tell you what has happened in the accounting rules, because I got involved with, remember this company called Silverado? You guys probably don't know that. Now I wouldn't be involved with that, would I? Rest assured, we get involved with all of those things. As a bank director, all my buddies were bankers, and of course, the guy that runs Silverado was just loaded, putting money out everywhere he wanted to, but one of his considerations so he could make money, just so you people knew about it, I couldn't do a project with him unless I had Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac approval. Anybody around here buying Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac bonds? They're out there. They're in their, quote, government-backed securities mutual funds, based on, quote, the quote they're going to get back here. Anyway, in order to do that, I had to pay, Metz down there, who was the president at that time, an additional 5%. That's 5%. So if I want to borrow $100 million, I got to pay him $5 million up front. Now look, if I'm going to do that, somewhere it's got to be paid for, right? You as the borrower, it has to be included in the price of the house. Whether you know it or not, when I build a house or I build a project, there's about 20% of that project is what we call soft cost. stigma of imagination. Anybody know what an MAI means? It's an appraisal. It says member of the Appraisers Institute. You know what I used to call it? Made as instructed. The only reason why, because the insurance company, in order to loan me a couple $1,000,000 or whatever they wanted to, they says, well, give me an MAI. I call my buddy and says, put that price down. He'd write me out a deal. That's the way it was. So I could get whatever numbers that I had, and if I needed to, I was creating what they call the illusion of money. And that's what you all are going to have to get understanding. The money that you're using right now is an illusion because the Federal Reserve is putting it out to you, and there's nothing behind it. It's an illusion. And what's going to happen when all illusions go away, historically speaking, money is going to run to the metals. However, the metals are run by who? The Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. They pay the price twice a day. Now they know what's going to happen. Remember this Plan 2000? The scenario? There's lots of things in the scenario. The Plan 2000 scenario economically is they're going to run the stock market up to 3,500. Now, how do they do that? What they do is they have their pension fund members that are members of the Council of Foreign Relations and the Trilaterals. They're under instructions of their boss to buy stocks. They're unloading pension money into it. They're getting insurance companies, which are again members in there, to put money into the stock market. And 2 years ago, remember the 500 Black Monday we had? 500-point drop? I was a broker. Everybody was given a notice as an underwriter that the Federal Reserve would loan us all the money we needed to make the market. For you people who don't know what make the market is, let me give you an illustration. Let's say you have 100 shares of Disney and you want to sell it. However, nobody out here, they went on vacation. So the specialist or the underwriter buys it, temporarily parks it with his own money. So we have an orderly market. Now, what happens if the market starts dropping fast and the underwriter doesn't have enough cash? What happens? He can't buy the stock, am I right? So guess what happened? Most of my buddies said, no, wait a minute, we're not going to go into this game because we know it's late, so we backed out. So guess what happened? The Federal Reserve put 6 members of the CIA on the floor of the exchange, and they're buying with what? Paper money. That has nothing. Now, let's make it more fun. Because the Dow Jones that you look at is not anything special except for a private company, which is part of this group again, keeps track of what's going on within the Dow Jones. Now, if the company starts losing too bad, what are we going to do? You guys remember a company called... You can't find it on the Dow Jones. Guess who replaced it? Disney. Isn't that nice? So what we're doing, we're squeezing the economy down to less and less companies that we can give you the illusion that they're making money. Now, I don't care. What we're doing now is a game of money playing that we can make figures do all kinds of things. Money doesn't lie, but liars figure. And what I'm trying to do is awaken you to exactly what's going to occur as we're coming down, and our Palladian friends are saying, look, according to our information and the way we're monitoring, we have the best computers in the world. They said we've gone through 144,000 planets and done the same thing. It seemed to be all part of your growth no matter what. You're little kids, you're in a big superhighway and you're going to get run over by these trucks, but we're going to try to get you out, but you got to do the work. Does that sound fair? So what they're telling us is immediately, you got any money in the market? Better be out. You got any money in insurance companies? Better be out. You got any money in mutual funds? The only one that may be good is direct obligations of United States Treasuries. Now, mutual funds are an interesting thing. Remember, I created those things myself. What it amounts to is, how do I make money on your money without me doing anything? That's the underwriter. That means pool a bunch of people in here, we'll take their money, and we think we're smarter, we're going to invest it, we're going to do that. We did that, and we charged whatever it was, 1/4 or 0.5% or whatever the fee we charged, even up to 1%, maybe higher, to manage your money every year. When the market starts to collapse, which it's going to do, because their plan is to collapse it, and merge the United States into this new world order by executive order, if nothing else, because we're going to have a financial emergency. Okay? Get below what's going on. As this thing collapses down, we have all of these stocks going to pieces. Everything's going down. The mutual fund cannot liquidate, so it files bankruptcy. What do you do what happens to assets in bankruptcy? We are creditors at that point to the bank. Am I correct? The referee or the trustee then takes the assets and liquidates them at some time in the future. You may get your money, or a percentage of it, sometime down the line, after it's all over. Okay? So would you buy a mutual fund? It's up to you. I'm just telling you what I'm looking at. So we've got the stocks, bonds. Remember those? Only one that's safe, relatively. Remember, our government, the way you have it now, has to exist at all costs. Safety, absolute safety. 6-month, 90-day Treasury bills. Don't buy any Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or any of these, quote, government-backed obligations, because you're going to find those drop down to maybe 20 cents on the dollar when this thing collapses. So, for short-term safety, that's $10,000 or more, you buy Treasury bills. If you have less than that, go buy Series E savings bonds. They're still going to drop in value, but at least you have something that's semi-liquid. The next thing I'm suggesting to people, we got this big trading money. The plan is to maybe, what they did an experiment this last year. You've all read about the money in Russia, where they traded all their money in on the rubles. That was printed in Texas. The same printing place that is making our new colored money. They gave it to them free because it's all part of the world system. By the way, the Soviets and us have never been really partners, enemies. We've always been friends. Did you know that? Because remember, the adversarial position, the old goal, we always have to set people up at war at each other all the time. All the time. I mean, look at Arm and Hammer and the Rockefellers flew in there anytime they wanted to. You knew that. If they could do that, then it's obviously something else is going on in the undercurrent, i.e. what's going on. I want to know, you should know, and you want to find out. Now, how are we going to come about doing some of these things? Remember we said a little while ago 65 million Americans didn't file their tax return? What's the first thing that happens when you don't file a tax return and the government's upset about it? They're going to come bouncing down on you, aren't they? If they can find it. I mean, they're going to send you a letter. Well, you're late. Why don't you send us your tax return? Well, you can claim a lot of different things, and you can go through the trouble, and you're going to know, just like me, at the same time. The next day, I get this stupid levy on some property, because they're going to find your assets. You put it right down there in paper form. I mean, they know exactly where you are. You show them where you get your interest. You show them where you're getting income. Just label it. So you don't do it, they're going to go get it. How are we going to stop this malarkey? I'm not going to play their game. I want to know the rules. Well, unfortunately, we have a little book in the back. It's called Privacy in a Fishbowl. Every one of you should have at least that. Privacy means I don't want anybody to know what's going on with my assets, and how can I do that and still have control? I'm a master at doing that myself, figuring out how I can get away, so I have the illusion of doing all that. Nevada is an interesting place. Nevada is the only state in the United States that does not give out information on who owns their corporations. It has no federal reciprocity. You have no state tax. So what I'm going to do, and I suggest you do, and I've already done it, frankly, is that I create a new person. A corporation is a person. Now, I don't know who owns that corporation. That's up to you after you determine what you want to do. But somehow I want to do what? Move the assets into that corporation, because the corporation is the last bastion of tax shelters left. In the last 2 years and 3 years, we've had so many all the good things that I used to have as an individual are no longer there. I mean, I used to play around with all these Mickey Mouse games, and if you saw my, quote, tax return, I'm one of these people that they hate because they don't know what to do with me. I'm not sitting up here telling you all the facts. It's because I have such a huge negative tax carry forward. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell you the facts, and I'm going to tell you how to get around them. So what you do is you create your corporation, you put your assets, or put a lien that's so heavy on your assets that nobody's going to touch them, in favor of your corporation that you control. That's the Rockefeller trick. In other words, you've got a $100,000 home you haven't paid, even though it's going to be worth about 10 cents on the dollar. Did you know that? Your $100,000 home is going to be lucky to be worth $10,000. Property in Phoenix is as little as 20 cents on the dollar now, just in the last 2 years. Here in San Francisco, you've got property that had a forced seller stuff right over here by the airport at 50 cents on the dollar. Are you aware of that when the earthquake occurred, right? We didn't go into, remember I told you a little while ago? We didn't go into what's going to occur upon the planet. I just told you we're going to flip over on the taxes. Look around, kids. Way a lot of things are going to happen before then. The geophysical changes that they're monitoring, remember those craft you saw? They're monitoring the changes of the planet. We're going to have winds of 200 miles an hour. They call the ring of fire is going to increase. They say it's like a spiral. More earthquake activity. In California, the San Andreas is going to go, their estimation, on a 10 plus. It's going to move a minimum of 18 inches, and because everybody's asleep, I hope you guys aren't, they're expecting over 2 million lives, and the infrastructure of both San Francisco and Los Angeles is how old? Infrastructure means what? The sewer lines, the electric lines, the water lines, everything you can. You didn't have any money from the federal government from the earthquake last year. Did you know that? None. We have a federal emergency money that's supposed to come in to help you. It was all done here. It wasn't here. What's going on? Well, the government doesn't have any money, that's all. So we're going to have to get ourselves a little bit more prepared. All right? The indications are, the information I have now is that they may confiscate money if it's over either 1 month or 2 months of your income. That's what they can rush it. We have to use them as a model. That's all I can do. So you may have 1 or 2 months worth of income in cash, small bills. Now they told us previously to put all your money into not bigger denominations. Of course, yesterday they announced they're coming out with the hundreds and the 50s, I just found out. And the new money with the lines into it. Now, let's talk about cash, just so you know. 17% approximately of all the money that we use is cash. All the rest of it is, what do they call that? MasterCharge, Visa, checks. Did you know that? So the real money, cash, is just a small amount. What you don't know is the amount of counterfeit money that's out, including the counterfeit money that was made by our own great government, the CIA, and others, including the Germans, including everybody else. Some history of that is one of our books that's back there. I think you find it funny. It's called Skeletons in the Closet. In it, remember the technology I was telling you about? The Germans developed the Imperium, and they also developed flying saucers. They also developed the first nuclear submarines. And Hitler made an agreement with our, whatever it was, Secret Service at that time, to allow him to escape to the Antarctic and Argentina and Chile, and he went there with 200,000 Germans. Along with that, he took some printing plates for the American dollar. And these printing plates were so good that he'd take them to Switzerland, or have his people go over, and Switzerland would go ahead and convert it to money, and World War II was never officially over. Did you know that? Who do you think laundered the money that they created? Their old buddy Japan. $45 billion worth of this currency has been laundered through Japan, which has bought the United States. Now let's go turn around the other way. The trilateralists, remember Japan, trilateral means 3 parts. It's the United States, European Community, and Japan. They haven't been playing hardball lately, so what did they do? The stock market in Japan this year has dropped 50%. They have pulled out $75 billion out of the American economy this year so far. The South Koreans have pulled out $65 billion. And everything's rosy, right? Now we want to have what we call free trade, because what jobs you do have left, we can get them down there for $5 a day. How does that make you feel? There's people down there that have got degrees that are trying to get work anywhere in Mexico, and they're going to take your job. I mean, you can take a look at Canada, what's going on, and they're our best neighbors up there. They're screaming. And they're sitting there with their new prime minister up there, who's directly talking to who? The Queen. Well, why did the Queen come over here? Well, she has an inspector property. She's the largest landowner and the largest stockholder in the United States. Interesting. Didn't know that, huh? Japan's about the 5th. Now, I wonder why we went to Kuwait. Did you know Kuwaitians own 12% of our stock market? You didn't know that. I wonder why they made a deal with the Emir made a deal with Bush and get this thing all set up. Hussein was in on it. They're all in on it. All setting up in order to do it. Remember the Plan 2000? In that, there's a group called the Club of Rome. It has figured out systematically how to annihilate man. Their plan is to bring us down to less than 200 million. The planet could never be for 500 million because we've wasted most of it. What they're doing today, as we talk, you and I, there's 35,000 people working 24 hours a day in Pine Ridge, Australia, building some beautiful underground facilities. Are you aware of them? Most of them are Oriental troops, Oriental people. They're getting high wages. They work for 6 months. They get 6 months or 3 months off, and they go back. Incredible amount of money, and they can't say anything about it. We have been getting a lot of information from people leaking out what it is, and who's that for? The elite, because they know what they got planned to reduce the population. Remember that E.T.s virus was created? There are more standing by. Dr. Eva Sneed has researched the viruses, including Epstein-Barr and a bunch of other ones, and she can name the laboratories where they're made, and they just took away her license because she came forth to say all this. And her information makes you sick, because biological warfare has been going on for about 80 years. All of these, all of a sudden, flus that went on in Europe, where did they come from? In San Francisco, the Navy, I think it was the Navy, put up a Sraight, the harbor out here. All of the San Franciscos got this virus. Several people died. They got sick. It was just an experiment to see how quick we could quote a mile in a mile. A man by the name of George Bush, when he was vice president, was on a committee in order to reduce the population or check the world's population. Currently, 40% of the women in Brazil are sterile. We're getting rid of Africa. You've heard Dr. Enoch talk about that. AIDS, we know how we're doing that. However, we have cures, and the government wouldn't create these diseases unless they had the cure in the first place, because the elite think they're better than we are. We're going to have to stand up and demand that we get these things, so they have it. They've also, I'm telling you some other things. A guy by the name of Nikola Tesla, some of you know the name. Nikola Tesla found out that you could transfer energy from one part of the country to the other without wires. And he says to Westinghouse, he said, I'm going to put an antenna on the Empire State Building, I'm going to put little antennas on everybody's houses, and they can have free energy. And Westinghouse said, what? I can't put a meter on it? I can't get any money for it? He said, nope, that's my gift to mankind. Well, guess what happened to Tesla? But his technology, the special technology, was kept by the great government. And the Russians developed that technology incredible. They developed what we call cosmospheres, the size of a Goodyear balloon. They developed the stealth technology. Remember the Philadelphia experiment? It's true. Our government had the ability to go ahead and put a magnetic wave around object back then to create objects so you couldn't see it. It bended the light on the other side. That ability we have had for 40 years. Again, what are they talking about? Because we have money going into this economic stream. So if we've got this technology, and the Soviets have developed it really great. They have doubled their defense military budget this last year. You guys know that? We're reducing ours because the plan was, remember 20 years ago there was a guy that took a shoe out and set up on top of here? He says, I'm going to take America without firing a shot. Name Nikita Khrushchev. Because it was already set up in motion for us. And I, like everybody else, is totally asleep. Oh, that's fine, that's not going to happen. And then you read what side has got you telling you. You read this Trilateral Commission chart on the back, and you see how much of the Communist Manifesto has already been implemented. And then you're not going to know any difference. Other than, as he's correct, they're going to